Hi there. This is Lotus. I'm a little early setting up our live, getting used to how to do this. So I'll just talk for a minute, giving a little bit of an intro for those of you who don't know me, and then you can perhaps watch this on the replay. So my name is Lotus Lindley, and I have a practice called Art of Sacred Embodiment, which I've had for probably 2 decades under that name. And I primarily work with clients one-on-one and do classes, everything about embodiment and awakening, ascension, and this magnificent journey that we are all on, even if it doesn't always feel magnificent. So we are in a pretty amazing time. That word unprecedented seems to come up a lot over the last few years. And I think that that is very true. I just saw somebody jump on. So welcome, whoever is here. If you would give your name in the chat. Maybe I will write that little note in here. All right, there we go. So this is like my second live stream, I think. So I'm super happy to be here. We're going to wait for a couple more minutes. So I'll just announce that anybody who is coming on, if you would please drop your name if you feel comfortable, where you're from, if you feel comfortable, give me a hello so I can connect with you a little bit. So I just set this up this morning. So this was like definitely impromptu, and I'm going to just wait for a few more minutes. Ah, lovely. Hi, Alma. Thank you. Oh, from Arizona. Where in Arizona are you? I was in Tucson for 3 years. And oh, you're in Tucson. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I was there for 3 years while I was going to school down in Patagonia at the Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center with Dr. Gabriel Cousins. I don't know if you're familiar, but so nice to have another Tucsonian here. Welcome. Thanks for connecting lately. Yeah. Huh? So I know that there's going to be a couple people that I know who saw my other late post on Facebook, and I was going to send out a text, but I didn't really get around to that. So not this time. Still getting used to all the technology. So maybe what we'll do is, Alma, while I have you here, if there is anything, any certain questions that you have before we get started, any experiences with light language or just anything like that that you want to know, if you want to put that in the chat, that would be great. And if not, that is fine as well. I just wanted to offer that up before we begin. So there's going to be, I'll wait for a few more minutes. That means probably like 2 minutes. So I will be curious, even on the replay, you know, how many people have received light language, speak light language, familiar with it at all. And, you know, all of our experiences are important. All of our experiences matter. And, and when we share our experience, I really believe it gives us not only permission to open up to other things that as, hi, Sandy, welcome. Okay, great. Thank you, Alma. So I don't know what to do with it. Great. We will cover that. You know, when we share our experience, you know, in AA, we used to talk about it as sharing your experience, strength, and hope, right? As a way of supporting other people's experience. But also, I believe that when we can share our experience, you know, our experience and our stories, the way that I like to think about that is from a feminine path tradition and a feminine soul connection, is that our stories hold our lived wisdom. Even if we don't always feel that wisdom, it's always encoded in our stories. And when I'm saying our stories, I mean definitely our wounding stories are important for our healing, but I'm also talking about those stories of how we've grown and transformed and what has happened in those processes that create and develop who we are on deeper levels. So I am a big fan of personal experience, direct personal lived experience, grokking that and alchemizing the gems and the jewels and the wisdom from that. So thank you. Someone else has joined. And if you would like to just look at your chat, look down at the chat and add your name and location, that would be great. If not, no pressure. All right, so you know what? We're going to just go ahead and create the container before we dive in to the information, and we will be doing an activation today. I actually have also started calling light language activations. I'm sort of feeling them more as amplifications. Somehow, hey, Karen, welcome. Excuse me. Somehow amplification feels more relevant to where we're at now. Being in, you know, we're many years into this quickened ascension pace. So you guys can try it on for size and see what fits and feels best for you. All right, so let's just take a minute, please, and take a breath in, exhale. Just bring your energy in, dropping it down. With each exhalation, down into your breath. Dropping the breath, feel the breath, dropping your awareness, and then drop down into the belly. When we do this, not only are we coming into our sacred center and sacred grounding, but we're also pulling our soul energy back, our energy back into our vessel, the sacred technology that is our vessel, that carries our soul through this physical life. So just dropping down. And I always like to sigh a little louder because it allows the nervous system and the vagal nerve to vibrate so that we come into our parasympathetic nervous system a little more. So just joining here, coming into this moment, this time coming in from earlier in your day, coming in from whatever is happening after here. We're going to call forth beloved Mother, Father, God, Goddess, divine source, love and light and life of all that is right and true and whole and holy. All that is in a unified whole from which we came. Take another deep breath in. Just allow that to settle in, stream down through. And then all of our guides of the highest light and love from all of the higher realms, those realms directly connected to divine source love, truth, wisdom, beauty, radiance, joy, peace. And asking for all of our guides, whether they be galactics and angelics, ascended masters, ancient earth, elementals, the fairy realm, all of these realms that are unseen and a part of our multi-dimensional experience. Just asking for that protection and guidance, support, those nudges along our path to help co-create with the divine synchronicities and right alignments to guide our way. Breathing in, exhaling. And then as we call in our own highest self aspects of the highest light and love, I'm going to ask you just rest your hands over your heart center. Our own higher aspects. These are our multi-dimensional selves, our higher dimensional soul fractals of light, which are part and parcel of this awakening and ascension journey. Breathing in, exhaling, and calling in their guidance, their support, their love, their wisdom, and their remembrance. They are part and parcel of helping us to remember what we have forgotten, helping us to remember what we know on a deep, deep level of who we are, why we're here, that we have forgotten as we have densified onto this planet. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But just feel into you. We're calling you forth, your highest expressions of you. And dropping in. Beautiful. All right. And so we're just setting the tone, right? Creating the frequency for our time together here. Creating a container of only that then of the highest light and love, the highest good, the highest that is right and true, for the highest good of all. So before we begin, or as we begin, what I'd like to invite is just to take a moment and just to kind of like ponder, what does the evolution of the human species look like to you? If you were just to imagine, what does this look like? as we continue to awaken, to evolve, and to move into higher consciousness. What is higher consciousness for you? What and how would we behave if we're operating from these developmental stages and phases of our spiritual evolution? What do you feel like becomes more accessible to us as we truly remember ourselves as soul presences having a human experience rather than humans having a spiritual experience, right? Because as we remember things that we have forgotten, those take different shapes and form. What do you think the world would look like? How would we be in relationship with one another at a, let's just say, next level evolutionary jump of consciousness? So I wrote out this question, and I'll put this in the link. I have a blog that I wrote years ago. I think it's probably definitely the most popular blog on my website, and it's on light language, and it's pretty lengthy, and we're going to go over some of the information on that today, but I will also post it because there's more there that it might interest some of you. I posed this question, and I think it was probably 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, because it became important to start to recognize and to start to become conscious. What are we really doing? What does spiritual awakening actually mean to us and for us, right? And how are we seeing those qualities, those expressions play out as we go through our own personal journey? And I like to always bring myself back to this question. Well, what do I think it's supposed to look like? And oftentimes the answer is we're only going to be able to see that much of what it might look like, because, you know, we haven't been living in those realms. So when we talk about this, we're literally talking about ascension is expanding our consciousness, our energetics, our energy bodies, our heart, our ways of being and doing in the world into consistently expanded expressions. They're going to be different. They are expanding and evolving all the time based on the frequency that we are carrying inside of us. Now, we carry a number of different frequencies inside of us, obviously, because we have a number of different emotional expressions as a human. Those are frequencies. We have thoughts and beliefs. Those each are frequencies. So what we're wanting to do is move our frequencies that are our consciousness from dense, slow, heavy, solid, stuck, stagnant, reactive, right? And the emotions that are on the end of the scale that generally cause unhappiness and dis-ease in life in general. That can be emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And instead, we're wanting to cultivate a quicker, lighter, quicker, more light vibration, right? That's a frequency. We want it to speed up, so to speak, so that our body is holding the qualities that are what I like to say are more divine. They are states of being. They surpass emotion because emotions go up and down. They're of the human nature and they are of the polarity and duality of the third dimension. States of being are always present. They're always within us. When we can empty out, expand, drop in, and allow our more expanded selves to step in. So these are peace. Peace is always present. Joy. Love, of course, is the ultimate umbrella, I believe. Compassion. Celebration. Right? So what we're moving towards, beauty, radiance, okay, all of these very etheric words, they hold a frequency. Light language is part and parcel of activating our innate higher states of being and kind of helping us to get there, right? Kind of, we could say like starting that ignition until it turns over, so that once it turns over, if I'm making choices and decisions and that are moving my behavior from wounding, which needs to be healed, of let's just say a lack of self-worth, a lack of self-love, which are forgetfulness states, and anger. Let's just use some of these. All right. If those are my motivating factors on a deep level, those are in there as dominant frequencies. I may be in a good mood, but my dominant frequency, if it is unhealed, is going to be vibrating at a denser rate. It's going to hold me down. It's going to they're going to make my behaviors then be not in my highest good, right? I might do things, I might say things, I might, that hurt other people. I might hurt myself. Not really because I want to or because that is my true nature, but I am operating from that dominant density. So what the light language does is it comes in and slowly with I said this in the video, I think 3 days ago, we have to partner with the light language that we receive. And in partnering with it, we are able to transform. So I hope that's clear. Any questions as we go, please jot that in the chat. So this goes back. So we know light language now through the Ascension prism for most of us. And that Ascension prism started, we could say, in 2012. And gradually more people who had, let's say, done a fair amount of their deeper work and had, this is just, and everything I say is my perspective. Nothing is written in stone. And I talk about that again in the light language or speaking in tongues video, because we're always learning and growing. We're always evolving. So there are things that we don't know from whatever developmental stage that we're at. So anything that I say, If it resonates, awesome. If it doesn't, that's okay. Maybe it will later. Maybe your revelations will be perfect for your path. So let me go back to that now. So as more people started holding more light was coming onto the planet. As more light came onto the planet, frequency raised. As frequency raised, right, more and more people continue then to start to wake up. And in that waking up, they do their healing work, they're holding higher frequencies. And at whatever point, and I also believe that this is part of our soul blueprint, everybody is going to have their light language that's going to come through in ways specific to them. They're going to have languages that are going to come through from different sources, so to speak, but all are of the divine. That's my belief and my experience thus far. So as this grows on the planet, more and more of us have access to those faculties that we have always had. But the more of the density we clear out, the more light and higher frequency we hold inside, the more all of these other spiritual faculties come online. And I believe that the light language is one of those spiritual faculties that are now becoming so much more common, which is fabulous and beautiful. So one of the ways over the years, not just since I started speaking light language, but even before that, because I was already on this path for a good, almost decade and a half before I started speaking light language, a very deep Shakti tradition path, a divine feminine path. And one of the markers that I would always use along my way, if I started feeling confused, if I started feeling like, whoa, this feels way too new and I don't know what's happening, or if I would get anxious or whatever that would be, what I always came back to were these questions that I would ask myself. Am I becoming more loving and peaceful? Am I becoming less judgmental and more understanding of differences? Am I becoming more unified in my own emotional, mental, and embodied experiences? Meaning, am I feeling more whole in myself, more connected to myself? Am I growing in faith and trust in life with the capital L, the divine, God, divine source, whatever that is for your relationship? And part of why I was using these is because we don't always know. We're walking in the big mystery, all of us together. We all have different parts of this story. And we're all playing our roles in this epic adventure that we're in. And the more that we can touch base and know and track, what is my growth? Am I growing? How am I shifting into more of a aligned self and anchoring in these higher qualities, these higher states of being, of peace, of love, of joy, of faith, of trust, right? Unification, all of this. So I hope this is making sense. So I'm going to keep going. Any questions? Note it for me. So light language has a history, right? It has a history through Pentecostal denominations, through charismatic denominations, through Judaism, through Hinduism, through shamanism, and through spiritualism, right? Back in like the late 18, early 1900s. So the sciences of this, what we now call light language, are, because I can never say these right. So the first one is glossolalia. Glossolalia. That in itself sounds like a different language, doesn't it? Glossolalia. So glossolalia is the fluid vocalization of speech and syllables and sounds that don't seem to have any meaning to them. Okay. So, otherwise known as divine speech. But science couldn't prove one way or the other. You know, they like to test and they like results and they like them to match up. And there wasn't really a way to prove this, even though it was witnessed and it was studied. The other is xenolalia. Xenolalia, that's with an X, X-E-N. So this is the phenomena of speaking in a foreign language unknown to the speaker. It just comes through. Now, this can come through like foreign earth languages. This can come through when somebody gets a head injury, for instance, right? If that part of the brain is injured, then they may begin speaking foreign languages. Now, is that language encoded in their own genetic history? I don't know. That's why they might choose French or German, right? Spanish, whatever that is. But what the spiritual seekers and those who really, I think, were coming into a deep intimacy, understood that these languages, the music of the spheres and angelic languages and divine songs, right? And songs from the heavens, like really beautiful, beautiful, titles that light language was called. My sense was whether people were feeling the transformation from them or not, you know, in the early 1900s, I don't know. But they knew that they were connected to spiritual endeavors. Maybe that was meditation practices. Maybe that was deep shamanic practices, right? Because these will go back to even more, Aboriginal tribes and things like that. So it's not new, but what is new is that it's becoming more and more, I don't want to say mainstream, but, mainstream within the spiritual communities. And I did talk a little bit in the last video about frequency when it comes to Christian traditions and denominations, charismatic, Pentecostals, that don't really seem maybe to be illustrating a wide spectrum of their own spiritual awareness or spiritual awakening. And part of that is having to do with they're still opening to the divine, right? They're still accessing it because some part of their heart, it's all about the heart, it's all about love. Some part of their heart is open and accessed, but there's just still a lot of density that isn't allowing the evolution to take place. And if you don't know that it's important to deal with the inner stuff, then most people aren't going to deal with it, right? And some generations, they don't want to look at it. They don't want to talk about it because there's shame, there's guilt, which again needs to be healed. And those are the generational wounds that get passed down, through family lines. So when we're working with light language consciously, let's jump into this, right? what we're doing is we are coming into a relationship with higher levels of intelligence that are directly connected to divine source. Now, these can be angelic realms, right? So we're talking about multi-dimensional beings, multi-dimensional information. We can get light codes, which is a kind of information from the sun, right? The sun is giving us tons of light codes, like crazy. Yeah, Alma, great. It is called shadow work. Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. Healing, doing that deeper work is shadow work. Thank you. So we can get these light codes that then are symbols, perhaps, that we take into our system, and they know exactly what to do to upgrade us. So upgrading us means that we have to understand that our human body is a sacred technology. We are a sacred vessel of the divine. As we're going through the ascension process, as we are anchoring in all of this light, which are our higher self consciousnesses, okay, celestial consciousnesses that are all living beings, they are supporting the evolution of the entire galaxy, not just humanity, but the entire Earth, the Earth ascension light codes, right? Everything gives off light codes now. And we could say that then those of us who start to do light language, we then give off light codes, right? We keep raining down the light in order to support other beings, right? Other life forms to do their up leveling, to do their they're upgrading their sacred technology of the chakras, of the brain, of the nervous system, of our cells. The more light we take in, whether this is from the sun and even with light language, these codes of light are the biophotonic light in our cells. And when we ask, well, what does our human evolution look like? What is the human species being evolved into? The most common expression, I think, that people are sensing and seeing, and some people are knowing this experientially, is that we are becoming beings of light. We are literally transforming from the inside out, from the frequencies inside of us, to become beings of light. Now, does that mean that we're going to be transparent and all that? I have no idea. But what it will mean, I believe, is that we will radiate. We will have a radiance, a halo, so to speak. Maybe like we can see through the photography when we get our aura taken, our aura picture taken, right? We see the beautiful light that is emanating all around and through us. How long does this take? What does this look like? We don't have all this answers, but we do know that it's changing our physiology, our chemistry, how our brain is literally wired, how our nervous system operates. It's changing our organs. It's giving us more chakras than what we've known. All of this is really just returning us to what we've always been. It is the remembrance of what and who we are, beyond the personality, beyond the human form. So I hope that that is registering. Let me look at my little notes here. So this is what we're doing, right? We're working from the density into light. We're working from solidity and difficult, heavy feelings and thought forms and ways that we think life is into a lighter, freer, more expression of what we also are calling the new earth reality. New earth, it's inside of us. It begins inside of us. We can live on this plane within a new earth reality when our frequency has stabilized at higher octaves, which is everything that, the light language helps us to do. So before I go further here, I want to read directly. I'm not going to read each paragraph because it can be long. So this is what I was given by my guides when I was asking them more specifically, okay, so like, what are we really doing with all of this, and how can I communicate this to people more clearly and coherently in a way that they can understand? So here's what they said. Light language is here to assist the evolution of our sacred technology, i.e. the body, and our consciousness by deprogramming the falsehoods, the old patterns of density and forgetfulness. So this is what I've said. Light language connects us to our multi-dimensional selves, the deeper and higher truths of who we are beyond our 3D identification, right? Like I am Lotus, I am a teacher, I am a healer. None of that. Yes, it supports us in having a context, but that isn't who we are. Light language remembers us home to the culmination of our totality in this time and space. The circular and spiraling of time brings us present with our future self, our past selves, and the innate wisdom and love that we truly are and know. We know that we are love, but we forget. Light language helps us to rise out of the fray of our habitual emotional chaos and stories of the past, lifting us towards our higher self and distances us from the painful antics of our own suffering, self-negation, self-rejection, our small self, our lower maturity self functions from imbalances in the lower centers, which are largely disconnected from the higher centers. Okay, so that's a mouthful there. So basically, right, we're getting pulled out. We're getting pulled up into our higher centers, but we have to go along with the program, right? We have to go along with the divine program, which is what I call divinely aligning. They go on to talk a lot more about that, so I'm not going to go into that. Light language understands that we have free will. So it will not do for us what we are not willing to do for ourselves. All right. So we have to shift on the level of our personhood. we have to make new choices. And the light language will be there and be supporting of that when we have the readiness and the willingness, when we're able to receive certain codes. Light language disrupts old patterns, old grooves that are deep-rooted beliefs, habits of conditioned functioning. As these outdated patterns are broken up and broken down, we feel the symptoms of that energetic dismantling. So this is part of what we call ascension symptoms. And I'll just repeat that. When old patterns, when old deep-rooted, beliefs and pain and suffering is starting to be cleared up, and okay, thanks, Karen. I'll get to that. Yeah. How do they talk? When they're broken down, we experience sometimes like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Oh my God, my head hurts. My body hurts. I can't sleep, for instance, right? I'm not hungry right now. I haven't been hungry in days, right? These are the type of things, aches and pains, that are ascension symptoms. Ringing in the ears, a lot of dizziness, perhaps lightheadedness, that if we don't understand that, I'm not saying don't pay attention if these things are happening, but to know that most likely if you're on the spiritual path, they're going to be connected to your evolution. And our evolution happens through our body because this is the sacred vehicle for our evolutionary process. So when light language is consistently receive, we have to get it. And then we have to do what we can to anchor it. Sometimes that means drink a lot of water. Sometimes that means get your feet outside on bare soil. Sometimes that means get out in the sun. Sometimes that means sleep, if the body needs to sleep after you receive light language. And then it needs to be integrated, right? So the integration process is then part of, I now have the opportunity to choose to manage my emotions differently, my thoughts differently, and behave differently. All right, so I have to then change. And I'll talk about that because we do get assistance in that. So what we're doing, and I think that's a very long one too, so I'm not going to go deeper into that. So we have this organic technology. The organic technology means that it is life-giving. It comes through the organic world. It does not come through AI technology. It does not come through artificial means. And I'm trying to think of like what would that look like, right? I can't come up with that right now. I think more there's the mechanical machine, right? Technological paradigm, which is now vying for our attention, for quick and easy, for implants. And I'm not talking about things that are actually truly going to help, but to make things quick and easy, right? So I can open doors, so that I can get a chip put in my wrist or my hand so I can check out at the grocery store faster. That is going down that pathway of the inorganic timeline. The organic timeline is when we are connected. Yes, many hacks, Sandy. Yeah. And I'm not saying all of them are good, bad, right, or wrong, but it's something that we need to be aware of, and we need to choose wisely. Is this going to connect me more deeply to my soul? Is this going to connect me more fully to nature, to love, to, the natural world, to relationships with others? Is it going to uplift me from within and not just quick fix me? Okay. Um, so yeah, so there's that. Um, so the organic timeline is that which inherently brings us closer and closer to God, to divine source, to spirit, whatever that is for each of us. It holds life in the container of sacred, and that the human intellect is not always in control, and it does not always know better than divine alignment, highest will, highest good for everyone. And that's a tricky statement. I just want to say the highest good for all is a tricky statement, and we're not going to go into that now, but know that it's not as basic as it seems. So yeah, Karen, how does it speak? There are different ways for me. Sometimes I just hear it in my head. So when I first started receiving light language, and Alma, you talk about this as well, I don't know what to do with it, right? So speaking in tongues, and Alma, if you haven't seen that video, you might want to go back to listen to it. We can only transmit, right, as any healer, as any teacher, we or I can only transmit to you what I have directly experienced and the wisdom that I carry from what I have learned, how I have transformed my own being again and again and again. Okay, I can only transmit to that degree. It's the same with light language. This is, again, what I believe. Light language can come through, let's say, for instance, I'll just use myself. So let's say if light language had started coming through me and I didn't want to, if I shut it down because I didn't know what to do with it, right? It would have stopped. It didn't stop because my soul was ready for it. My soul knew what to do with it. My soul, by that time in my journey, was very much in the driver's seat, not my personality, my ego, my own will. So my soul was in the driver's seat, and my soul was like, yeah, we're doing this. And I had to go through those questions, right? Like, oh my gosh, am I becoming more loving? Am I more peaceful? The first thing for me, Karen, and I might have talked with you about this before, no, they do not speak English. I don't know what they're saying. Was joy. So literally the first dimension, I knew nothing about multidimensionality from the perspective of ascension at this time. I knew it in other ways, but I didn't know that's what it was. So from earlier throughout my journey. So joy was the first experience, the first transformation of my internal frequency that was completely palpable. I had gone from feeling rather tired and maybe a little heavy because I was coming out of a dark night period, and deep within, the dark priestess and my own inner priestess practices for a couple years, and I was coming out of that, and um, it just like it changed my world. It opened my heart. It like boom, and I had so much joy. Like life was fun. It was beautiful. I had more energy. Um, my light bulbs would go out in the kitchen. No, it was back when I was living in LA. When I'd go into the kitchen, because my frequency was upticking so fast, my computer wouldn't work around me. It would keep shutting down, or it would like do scrambly things. Um, and I definitely had to surrender. Yes, Sandy, this is definitely a part of a path of surrender. Fortunately, that had been my entire journey. So I knew how to navigate it. But yes, great question. And the example that I'll give was that there were a couple things that stood out. Prior to this, my movie taste was darker. Because my history had been doing shadow work, right? Before I do what I do now, my deeper work was shadow work and helping people do their shadow work. So I had always been very drawn to psychologically and emotionally charged storylines and characters, because it was part of my learning, because it was part of my past. And I was always kind of analyzing and working with it, and I don't know what I was doing, but like my soul knew. So what happened when I made this shift, I could not watch any more of those movies. My body was repelled, and literally my heart would hurt. Now, I could have overridden that had I wanted to be in my own will. But I knew what was happening, and I knew that I was being guided because I work with embodiment. So all of my messages come through the body. So I knew that the light language was raising my frequency to the point to where there was no longer a match, and it didn't feel good. And I didn't want to feel that anymore. I didn't want to feel that kind of pain and suffering of other people. And I didn't even need to understand it anymore, right? Or analyze it, or yeah, just any of it. And right, so I listened and I backed off. And then there was another time when I was coming home from work and I was doing caregiving, and I was very cranky. I was in the traffic of Los Angeles. And so I was sitting in traffic, and I was very hungry. And yeah, I was just in a bad mood. And then all of a sudden, the light language just started, right? Coming through. And I'll tell you what source this was coming from when I'm done here. And all of a sudden, I started feeling happier. and I just started like talking to, I didn't understand then that this was part of my higher selves that was working with me. But I started saying, oh my gosh, okay, thank you. Okay, I feel so much better. I'm going to choose to just enjoy the ride home, even if that means sitting in traffic. I'm okay, right? Put on the music, enjoyed myself, I relaxed. And the light language was like going in the background in my head. Yeah, I think, Alma, that's a good way to put it. Yes, it was definitely my spirit guides for sure. And my guidance is very much now connected with my highest self, because I've already embodied a lot of that consciousness. It's very intricately interwoven. So yes, but absolutely. Um, so I knew that what they were doing for me was trying to keep me out of falling into old patterns and old habits and old ways of being and old ways of, energy, taking in energy that didn't make me feel good. So our addiction to suffering, and I have another video on that way back in my library that I did a few years back, where I talk about the addiction and attachment to suffering, which is a program of humanity that keeps us almost like craving the familiarity of our wounding stories and that vibration and frequency of our suffering. So I recognize that they, the light language was helping me with this. Now, the source of my first light language experience was from the fairy realm. I knew that I was part fairy, but I kind of thought that that was just I don't know, a fantasy, kind of like, oh yeah, well, I just kind of remind myself of that archetype. Well, come to find out, along this ascension stage of my journey, the fairy realm, the elemental realm, is very real, and that part of my highest self, who I thought was a guide, right? And then I realized, oh, it's me. I am this fairy. So I'll tell you one more personal story on this note. So I was coming home one day from Griffith Park in LA, and I'd been up there doing my practice and, out in the sun and kind of by the woods. And I was definitely like in that really, really beautiful, expanded state. And I was coming back home down through the neighborhood, and I could see. So this was another thing that the light language was helping to turn on for me. I could see up in the tree, there was this little light that was like this invisible body in the tree that was a fairy. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I was so expanded in my heart, I could perceive it with my eyes. So I went to the tree and I, kind of like hugged the tree, and I was just saying, I see you, and thank you so much for, like communicating with me and letting me, letting me perceive you. And then this tiny little fruit of that tree literally dropped right down and landed in the top of my bun, because I always wear my hair in a bun. And that was their little sign. So light language began to open me up to the magic of the higher realms. And as soon as that happened, I was able to begin to recognize that this realm here is only a part of the story. And we actually have a choice where and how we want to live. But it takes the work. It takes time. It's a process. It's a process of upgrading our frequency and everything that goes along with it. So what are some of the, so we've talked a lot about, what light language does. So I want to talk about the languages themselves. So I want to go back to yours, Karen. I don't understand what they're saying. Some people do. I don't understand them. I can glean emotion. I can glean, sort of like sometimes personality that comes through the language. Now I know that those are just sort of parts of that higher self expressing through me. Light language, when you hear it, when you receive it, you're actually receiving what is filtered down through your highest self. So your highest self knows what of those codes you need to receive. Let's break that down even further. Light language, a code of light language carries like a library full of information, like a library. Each sound, each tone is a dynamic process that we take in only what is right and true for us. Our highest self knows that. Our soul presence knows that. Now, does the rest of it sort of get stored perhaps in our subtle bodies? Maybe, right? For when we're ready to receive those codes. And then that is part of upgrading our blueprint. I don't know that for a fact. That's just kind of what I sense and what I've watched over the years with myself. They can connect us to our angelic families, our galactic families, our ancient earth families, our fairy families, our elemental families, right? They're kind of a bridge. The light language is this bridge. And all of those sources are going to have their own tones, their own language, their own ways of articulating things. So sometimes they'll come just through my head. Oftentimes I can ask, like say I can't sleep at night sometimes, and I just sort of go, oh, okay. And I just open up to my highest self and I just allow the light language to just pour through my mind and soothe my body and calm everything down, bring harmony, balance, peace, all of these things. Light language wants us to come into a place of coherence. Heart, mind coherence. We need coherence in order to upgrade and in order to sustain specific frequencies and bandwidths. So I wish that I was a music person because I might be able to understand this or explain it better. But, right, music goes up in octaves. And our frequency as we evolve goes up in octaves and holds more and more light and more coherence. Coherence doesn't mean that we never have, dips or hard times. But what coherence means is that we can regain our emotional turbulence or drops or grief or sadness, right? That maybe we've done a lot to heal, but it's still taking time. The light language can come in, right, and help to shift that up so that, okay, we've done the work. We've taken responsibility. We've been accountable. We've learned our wisdom, and now we just have to let the residual patterns or those residual threads from past identity, past storylines, past any of that kind of fall away. And the light language can speed that up, right? It can help us to create new patterns. Goes back to my story, right? The light language was saying you can choose joy, but you have to not participate in those movies anymore, because the density is going to pull you down, because it doesn't feel good, because it's violent, because it's sad, because it's unhappy, because it's destructive. You can choose that if you want, or we have another way, and we're going to support you with that. And the more you come in that direction, we're going to keep uplifting you to the next level. So maybe, right? So let's say, or I will say, this is kind of funny. So I couldn't do those movies anymore, but I could do dramas, right? Like dramas that were rather mild, but there was still sadness, right? There was still destructiveness. There was still, whether that was emotional or violence, you know, even little bits of violence. Even if it was verbal violence, I learned my lesson. I watched a movie that I was really excited to see, and it had amazing actors that had gotten amazing awards, and I didn't know what the movie was actually going to be. And about halfway through, I could feel like I was just feeling icky, and I knew that I should walk away, and I didn't. And I watched it till the end, and I dropped into that. And it took me probably like 3 to 4 weeks to get my vibration, my frequency, my mood back up. And that was even with the help of, you know, the light language. So we have choice points in every choice that we make. And what I love about the light language is that they support these choices. They help to bring more ease to them, in my experience. They help to, even maybe something doesn't need to keep being experienced. Maybe they'll just like wash it away. That's always amazing, right? But then we still have to follow through, because we're creating and stepping into a new life through our spiritual evolution. We are stepping into new ways of being who we are. And that's part of the consciousness expansion, right? So that, am I living from a harmonized field? And am I choosing the quickest way to come into harmony, right? And am I intentionally setting my, you know, my days, my nights, you know, maybe multiple times a day, you know, asking help, divinely align me, right? Show me what is the highest good. Show me what's going to uplift me. Show me what's going to open my heart. Show me, guide me. They're right there to help when we do this. They being, right, our own highest selves, being our spirit guides, being our own, let's say, cellular patterns, right? When our body knows that we're really on board, it wants to support us, because it in itself is its own wisdom. So light language helps to bring us from personal love, like higher levels of personal love, more openness, more safety in love. The number one way is by self-love. That was the big lesson for me, right? You've got to love you. You've got to love these shadows that you might feel guilty about or ashamed of. You've got to befriend them. You've got to understand them. You've got to love them. And you have to remember they aren't you, right? Behaviors, things that you've said or done have been motivated by your wounding. So we go to the core of our wounding, and that is part of loving ourselves. Doing our deep healing work is part of loving ourselves. And the more we love ourselves, the more we can love others. The more that we understand our own darkness and shadows, the more that we can understand the darkness and shadows of others. So as we continue to allow the light language to work its beautiful magic on us, right? That then we say yes to, then what starts to happen is we start to move to another octave, into divine neutrality and divine love. It does not hold the emotional ups and downs. It is more, it's a bandwidth of deep peace. It's a bandwidth that is able to sustain a clearer eagle view consciousness, as well as, I'm trying to think of a spaciousness around the hard things in the world, right? So without jumping into the mix, doesn't mean that we cannot take action if that is part of your divine blueprint. But that action comes from the clarity and the spaciousness of the harmony of our own frequency, first and foremost. Because if I'm a hot mess, and if I'm jumping into other hot messes, then, I'm just adding to the frequency of hot mess. But if I can be peace, and if I can speak from that place without any attachment, doing and saying what is true, and hold a higher frequency, I'm emanating and bringing in a higher frequency for those who might be able to perceive that and attune to it. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So this divine, we can call it cosmic love, divine neutrality, divine love, whatever that is. It's an expansion, and it brings about deeper peace, and we can walk through life without being pushed into any extremes, high or low. And I will say firsthand, it takes a while to get used to. It takes a while to get used to operating from that octave. And, I'm still in the early developmental stages of that octave. And it feels, there's not a lot of emotion to it, because emotion has ups and downs. And what I'm experiencing now has more of this spaciousness that might go like this, right? And then it just evens out, because I choose to acknowledge the feelings. I feel them, I acknowledge them. Is there something that I need to do? Is there something I need to do inward, outward? Is this for me to do? And then I let it go. And I surrender back into my own highest expression. All right. I am going to ask for any questions before we do a bit of an activation. Is there anybody who, has thoughts or feelings or experiences? Or Alma, does that help you to know with what to do? And Karen, does that help you to understand like how they communicate? Any thoughts, questions? Oh, okay, good. Thank you, Karen. So So what I want to do is an activation, and we're going to just affirm and confirm the container. And what I'd like to do with this is to offer up a moment for you. Okay. Oh, cool, Alma. Great. Great. I would, yeah. How can I ask you, how do you feel? Are you aware of any changes in how you feel when you speak it, like afterwards or during? So the beautiful thing about this is sometimes tired. Great. So the tiredness, right? We talked about that as an ascension symptom. So the tiredness, sometimes when you get, depending on the kind of clearing that's happening, um, it will just kind of wipe us out. And part of that is because we need to be taken out of the way. You know what I'm saying? Like our our figuring, our doing, our activities, everything that takes us out. So what ends up happening is we get tired and it's like, oh my gosh, I just need to lay down. Definitely do that, because that is where you're taking what you're receiving, right? And you're anchoring it in. Okay, yeah, tearful because of the beauty. Absolutely. Yeah, that's your beauty, right? You're you're feeling that deeper part of you. Beautiful. So, yeah, so that's the process of receiving, anchoring it in, lay down, go to sleep, eat something. If your body is hungry, get outside. And then that allows the integration to take place. Perfect. I love that. So as we continue to speak it, right, or to receive it inwardly or verbally, your frequency is just going to keep raising, and then it's going to guide you through its own way. So it's part of what you know, part of the embodiment work that I do has everything to do with tuning into the subtleties of our inner sensations, our feelings, our thoughts without reacting to them, getting to know them. Because the more light that we hold, the more subtle we are being invited to become. Meaning, the density of the world, it, what's the word I'm looking for? It it can it can override too easily, particularly at first. The density of the world can override if we can't feel what's really happening. So many people will feel tearful, will feel like bliss, will feel kind of like that deep tearful joy. They'll feel a deep peace. Whatever is right and true is going to come through. And I always recommend just taking some time to be with that, to jot some notes down about it so that you're tracking your experience so that you know how this works for you. So that's beautiful. So I'd like to invite everybody um, to what? I want to invite something that you're going to. So I want to invite you. What is one small habit, thought form, or emotion, right? It can be a story. It can be like that you tell yourself about, you're not good enough, or, this is this, or this is wrong with you, or this is wrong with that person, or life is this, right? But I want you to find something that is manageable so that we can help to move that through and it's something that you will notice and that you can then make new choices about, right? Like, oh, okay, yeah, I know when I do this, I don't feel good. And something in me is telling me right now, but this is a habit, right? This is something that I'm used to doing or I want to do, all right? But something that's manageable that you can shift away from so that you can start to feel how this works for you, all right? So I'm going to give you a minute. We're going to just close our eyes. And you might already know what it is, but you can also just listen, right? Just listen inside to your own soul. My guess is there's already something in your life that you're like, yeah, I'd like some help with this, please. And I'm willing to take the next step. So just close your eyes. And I'm going to invite you to relax back into your seat, relax back into yourself. Bring yourself away from listening outside and inner listen to whatever you notice is inside you, whatever your soul wants to communicate or share. And keep it manageable, keep it small, because you can come back to this, right? And you can do more. All right, so we're affirming and confirming our connection to divine source, love and light and life with the capital L. All of our guides of the highest light and love that walk beside you, inviting them to continue to walk beside you, walk with you, guide you, and your own highest self, those aspects of you in your own soul presence, inviting deeper internal communication that might speak from within, that might speak through the body, where your body knows if I do this, it's not going to feel good. Might speak through your emotions, maybe through the mind, but we're going to stick with sort of down in the feeling realms. So just calling in the overarching intention, living life through that intention. I choose love. I choose that which is in the highest love. And I choose to rise in love, to live as love, to remember myself as love, to be governed by love, to express as love, to rest in the love that I am, and to receive divine love. Malayane suni take a deep breath in, exhale, drop down. Alayana hayani asushua ta la mayaneti. Wisash kutapuya la yaniti. Makiti isono la mayani akum. Anala maskanatikati asunati. Niskushun yantiktu ya la yanatushun. Wasa tuki isa lamianum. Itushun, Wesashun, Wihalaya, Niatikum, Itpushunat, Wiputusha, Mianiatu am. Umialayane hianiasun, Ialayane hianiatun, Ialamashun, Ikiatun, Ialamayane. Skosamiane, Miatoya laham, Mikoya susi, Malaya niatikitiasun. Moshkut I ayaniana, waska shuniam, ui, wasya tupi, muyanya nyakayasi. Breath in, exhale. Becoming willing, to become willing, to become willing. To soften the heart, to open the heart. Without labeling or judging, but to living with an open, receptive heart. Open and receptive to the divine. To all that is right and true for your highest good and the highest good of all. Allow the heart's love to guide you. Aiskushia tiki e mushkut e eki ayanatukuyan. Allow the heart's love and the love of your entire being to support your deeper healing, to transmute any lies that you tell yourself or that you have been told into truth. You can be nothing truly on the essence of your soul level than beauty and grace and peace and love. We are remembering ourselves back to this truth. We are unwinding and uncoiling the many layers that block us from perceiving, from opening to being. Mashkania tuyania teshat the emanations of the divine that we are. We have come here for a myriad of experiences. And now we are here at this time for the experience of remembering that we are divine beings. Mishkonia tikaya niako waishkatia tika walaya niasun ikisiat Take a deep breath in, exhale. Alaya hekuya tikisiatuya siamum aki. Meshkotiale aya nianum aki. Aki. Miati kuya eki. So I'm going to have you just sit with this. So I want you just to imagine, sense, and feel As you sit, as you breathe, there is light streaming all through you and around you. There are symbols and images glistening, carrying information of your divine remembrance, streaming down through your being, through your cells. We've moved out areas of stuckness. We've moved out habitual patterns, what is right and true for you at this time. Just feel in with gratitude, with thanks, with grace. Feel held by divine grace, by divine love. With every breath, drop down into your root. Become a pillar of light, bringing light from the heavens, from the cosmos, down into your vessel and into Mother Earth. Take a deep breath in, exhale. So when you're ready, I'm going to invite you, if you'd like, to put one word or more into the chat. What did that feel like? How was that for you? What do you notice on the subtlest levels that may have felt like shifts, support, love? So you don't, great, relief, beautiful. Yeah. You don't have to come into your heads too much. I don't want you to stay in this presence. So the suggestion is, when we're done here, awesome, nice, good, Karen, thank you. I'm close to realizing it. Yeah. We are in this journey of remembering, and there are many things out there that want to pull us from remembering the light that we are by engaging us in the games of division and then we just see darkness when everything is so much more than this. So the ascension process is an evolution on all levels, right? Of consciousness, of life on this planet. It is in motion. Oh, nice. You felt that pillar. Beautiful, beautiful. Lovely. Thank you. So after this, drink a lot of water, do a little journaling, about anything that stood out for you, what resonated most for you, and how you feel like you are called, what changes perhaps you can start making. What are those behaviors, those thoughts, those emotional patterns? How can you move from a deeper place of grounding and coherence, and no matter what it is that we're doing? So maybe do a little journaling. And we are in Venus retrograde, as I mentioned. So I'm always a fan. If you have time, just let your world be a little spacious for a while. Be in your own bubble and allow these energies just to continue to absorb. So I am doing sessions now primarily with light language. And I've always done them just with light language. But what I'm doing mostly are 60-minute using intention, calling forth intentionality, and then working with intention, working with the light language, and then you following up with the changed emotions and behaviors. We're kind of, I want to kind of introduce this, that we're just stepping it step by step by step until you kind of start to get this rhythm of how to connect more deeply. Yeah, Alma, there is a book by Amy Price. Wait, Amy Price? No. I can't think of her name all of a sudden. Oh, Amy Price? No. Let me think for a minute. It'll probably come to me. And if not, I'll put it down in the group. It's kind of intense. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes it is. So just know, right, that the intensity or the stuff that might rise to the surface is just stuff that's being broken down. So don't attach to it. Let it go. Okay. All right. I think that that's it. Thank you all for being here, and you guys who do the replay, thank you for subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate that. More will be coming, I'm sure, and any other questions that arise, let me know, and I will highlight them in another video. So, all right, many blessings, much love. Thank you for being here. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day and weekend. All right.